So Ned's going to tell us about
this constructed wetland through the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, which is the United States Department of Agriculture Farm Bill program. So about 16 years ago, I pointed out to Allie and Cleo that they had this wet farm field and that we could get them, $300 to $400 an acre per year for allowing us to turn into a wetland at no cost to them. So they were very interested. We designed the wetland, they approved it, the government approved it, and we built it.
Ned, excuse me,
Yes,
who is we?
Chesapeake Wildlife Heritage designed the wetland and then went ahead and constructed it. So what we did is we put a low berm around the whole 18 acres. It's about 2 to 3 feet tall. And to get the material for the berm, we dug pool areas like this in the clay. And so that material was hauled to the edges of the field to create the berm. And we have a nice then mix of open water habitat and shallow emergent wetland habitat, like these sedges, and this is a plant called wild millet, and a number of other species in here. And it's fantastic habitat during the growing season for amphibians, all sorts of birds, shorebirds when they migrate through, make heavy use of it. And then of course the hook for most landowners is wintering and migrating waterfowl, make heavy use of this site and other sites like it. So
Would this be
here's
sort
some
of
waterfowl right here.
nice? Ned, would
Yes,
this
ma'am.
be sort of like a vernal pool?
No, ma'am. So a vernal pool is a natural vernal pool, is a depression in the woods that holds water, say maybe February, March, April, and then is probably dry 8 months of the year, which is great if you're a salamander, for example, or some species of frogs, because you go in there, you lay your eggs hatch, have the babies, and then it dries up. And by drying up, what happens is the fish can't live in there year round. And if you're a salamander, for example, fish are a problem. They eat you. So you don't have fish in there, great place to live. These, as a general rule, don't have fish either. But the reason these don't stay full year round is, number one, all they're doing is trapping the rainfall.
Oh.
And so in the summer, we have a lot of evaporation, evapotranspiration. But the other reason is because I'm going to come along in the spring.
You being the
wildlife biologist that manages the property, I'm going to come along in the spring and pull these boards out of this weir box. And when I pull the boards out, what's going to happen is the water levels in this wetland are going to drop.
wow.
And we want them to drop because we want to expose mud flats in the spring for migrating shorebirds. And we also want to expose mud flats in the spring so we get the growth of these sedges and millets and other wetland plants that are good food for, migratory birds, specifically waterfowl.
Okay, so the way I am understanding this is that you have created like a dike system.
Right, very low dike.
And are transporting the water out of here seasonally,
Right.
so that it doesn't get too full.
Right, we don't mind it being full from, let's say, November, December, January, and February, but come March or April, we like to start taking the water levels down so that we expose mud flats for migrating shorebirds in April and May, which they desperately need.
Why do they need them?
That's because that's where they feed. They feed on aquatic invertebrates in the mud.
Oh.
And so, they can't find much food. Some of it goes little peeps, we call them, the little sandpipers, and that they're so small that if they landed in 4 inches of water, it would be over their head. So they're tiny, they're just tiny little guys. And so they skitter around these mud flats looking for aquatic invertebrates. So we like to help them out. And it also helps out the migratory waterfowl because by exposing those mud flats, we get germination of all these wonderful waterfowl foods. Most waterfowl foods, sedges, these things, they won't really germinate underwater. They need to have an exposed mud flat, then they germinate and grow. So a lot of people say, I want to do a pond. I'm like, well, if you really want wildlife, you don't necessarily want to do a pond. You want to do a wetland. Because when I think of ponds, to me, that means it's brim full all year. And that has very limited value for wildlife. Whereas wetlands have tremendous value for all sorts of species of wildlife because of the fluctuation, be it natural or managed. Wetlands have seasonal water level fluctuations, which is what allows them to be such diverse wildlife habitats.
Fascinating. So how much movement did you have to do, like
How many
multiple
cubic-
tractors and stuff to
So
move
we have
all this?
we have a big excavator and off-road dump trucks with tires, these giant tires that can run around wet areas. And I think, let's say, we probably moved, I would say 10,000 cubic yards of material to build this wetland. So 10,000 yards, you're in the $70,000, $80,000 range, which is all paid for by USDA.
Wow.
And again, keep in mind, so let's just say it's about 20 acres for $100,000. Let's make the math easy, okay? So we're talking about $5,000, $6,000 an acre to build these lovely constructed wetlands. Firms that do mitigation outside of the Farm Bill program will often charge $50,000 to $150,000 per acre of wetlands. So these crepe wetlands are a tremendous bargain for the watershed, for the landowner. If you like wildlife diversity, these are a great thing. These Farm Bill programs are tremendously cost effective. They're great for the water quality. If all you care about is water quality in the Miles River and the bay grass that needs good water quality, again, these wetlands are your friend, because this is 20 less acres of 100 to 200 pounds of nitrogen a year going on this field. No fertility goes in here. It's not fertilized anymore. We do some spot spraying of herbicides. That's it. That's the list. And manage the water levels. So there's no more fertilizer inputs or anything of that nature. So it's a good thing for water quality, good thing for wildlife.
That's fascinating.
My board of directors always ask me when we meet quarterly, and I says, we talk about the latest wetland projects, and they point out some other places. I'm like, look, I can't make people that either like this kind of stuff or you don't, but $400 an acre is pretty good compared to the $100 an acre they're getting from a farmer. And we don't want to take all the farmland out of production, don't get me wrong, but the wet farmland, some of us would argue, probably never should have been farmed in the first place, and so we're putting it back to some sort of a natural use and providing the landowner good income for doing it. And the landowner is free to share that income with their farmer, and we hope they do, but we have no control over that.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Fascinating. Look at all this mud.
Yes, ma'am.
Whoa!
Yep, that's all right.
That's good
if you're
mud,
a critter,
right?
It's good mud. We love mud. I made my living when I was a little boy on the farm. I used to play in mud puddles, and I tell everybody, I said, I hit the lottery because I do that. I build giant mud puddles for a living, is what it amounts to.
And spell the name of this box again.
WEIR. It's called a weir box.
Weir.
Uh-huh.
Okay, weir box.
Yep.
Thank you.